the presidential race might still be a little over 2.5 years away, but midterms are now less than 6 months away, and Republicans are fighting to maintain their majorities in the House and Senate. One of the most closely watched elections this year comes in North Carolina, where Republican Thom Tillis is set to vacate his seat. Vying to replace him are former Democrat Governor Roy Cooper and former RNC Chair Michael Whatley, who joins us now. Chairman Whatley, thanks for coming on.
Good to be on with you, sir.
Now, I know a lot of Americans have election fatigue. I see people in the comments already saying, oh, the 2024 election just happened. Give us some peace. But in your view, what is at stake come November?
Well, ultimately, it's going to be control of the Senate. And you think about where President Trump wants to take this country, the agenda that he's fighting for every single day. We're either going to have a Republican House and a Republican Senate that are going to work with him. You know, the one big, beautiful bill is a perfect example of what they can accomplish when they're all three working together. But if the Senate is going to go Democrat, you know we're going to lose the House at the same time. All of a sudden, President Trump's entire agenda is going to go into the trash heap of history. And he's going to continue to fight, but he's also going to have to fight a rear guard against impeachment and investigations and hoaxes and the Democrats' legislative agenda. So it's a very big deal that we keep this seat in North Carolina. And the voters have a very real difference here because, you know, you're either going to have a conservative champion who's going to fight for North Carolina, going to fight for the America First agenda, and that's me, or you're going to have Roy Cooper, who's going to fight every single day for San Francisco, Chicago, New York values, who's going to fight against President Trump every single day on every single vote.
If you win and Republicans do hold their majorities in both chambers, what should be the number one priority of Congress over the following 2 years?
Look, I think you need to continue to focus on making sure that we have an economy that works for this entire country. Obviously, we need to further, make sure that the border is going to remain secure beyond President Trump's term, and that we are doing what we can to get violent, criminal, illegal aliens out and keep our communities safe. We also need to make sure that we are building our military, that we're going to have the strongest, military in the world. We're going to be the most respected country around the world. And I also expect we're going to have Supreme Court nominations that are going to be coming up during the president's last 2 years. And as we saw during his first term, that is an absolutely critical component of the long-term viability of the America First agenda.
You mentioned the economy as really the most important issue for voters. That's backed up in every single poll that comes out. But on that topic, President Trump is not performing well right now with voters on the economy. On average, he's hovering in the mid-30s for his approval rating on that topic. What can be done to turn that around and to encourage Americans that Republicans are doing a good job of handling affordability and the cost of living? Because right now, the American people, they don't feel that way.
No, look, Joe Biden left this country in a ditch economically. There's no question about it. We saw 30% plus inflation over the 4 years, 9% inflation year over year during his tenure. Gasoline prices were through the roof. Grocery prices and housing prices were all through the roof. That's one of the main reasons that we have a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican president. Democrats right now are doing everything they can to take us back to those same eras. Roy Cooper and the rest of the Democrats are fighting every day to raise taxes. We need to have lower taxes so people can keep more money. They're fighting for economic policies that are going to strangle jobs. We need to be creating more jobs. We need to have higher paying jobs. So, there's a real fight going on right now within Congress, within the Senate, within the presidency on these elections over what we're going to do to strengthen our economy. President Trump's fighting every single day, and he needs Congress there to make sure that we're going to press on these policies that are going to create jobs, allow people to take home more money, and allow them to keep more money.
You talk about inflation under President Biden, and it certainly did start to come down in 2024. And after President Trump was elected, there's no doubt it was moving in the right direction. But ever since the war in Iran started, we've seen prices start to creep back up. And there is no doubt that the war in Iran is contributing to the cost of living, especially when it comes to oil prices and the price at the pump. Right now, as things stand, do you support President Trump's ongoing effort in Iran, given that economic impact here at home?
Absolutely. The fact is that President has been absolutely steadfast since he was a candidate all the way through his first term. He is not going to allow Iran to develop and deploy nuclear weapons. I firmly agree with him that we cannot allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. We cannot allow them to be able to deliver payloads into Europe or the United States via missile. And we also need them to not be exporting terrorism around the world. So, that is an agenda that is very concise. It is very precise. And it's very, very important from our national security perspective. And I support the president on that.
Now, for folks who haven't been covering your race as closely, one of the key issues has become your opponent, Roy Cooper, a policy he had during the COVID era that released over 2,000 criminals onto the streets of North Carolina. Tell us about the impact of those policies, because this has become a major issue in this race.
Yeah, look, 3,500 criminals that he released because he didn't want them to get COVID in prison. Over 600 of them have gone on to commit violent crimes, from sexual assaults and aggravated assaults. 18 of them have already committed murder since he released them out there. And we have a litany of horribles. Probably the most famous one is DeCarlos Brown Jr., who killed Irena Zarotska on the Charlotte light rail last year. He let, the DeCarlos was on that list. He was re-arrested, re-released under the governor's soft on crime policies, 14 more times before he got on that light rail car and killed Irena in cold blood. The fact is he should have never been on the streets. He should have never been on that light rail car. And Irena Zarotska should be alive today. But we have a very long list, people like Keyshawn Norrell, who had already killed somebody. Then Cooper released him, and he went on to shoot 2 more people, killing one of them, including a young mother. These are the things that we don't need to see in North Carolina. When you see 18 people who have been released by the Governor Cooper and gone on to commit murder, plus hundreds of others who've committed sexual assaults and even violent crimes, it's absolutely unacceptable. Frankly, it's disqualifying for him to run for further office.
Chairman, the seat you're running for is currently held by Tom Tillis, who is not seeking re-election. He made more than a few Republican lawmakers angry with his constant clashing with President Trump on the Big Beautiful Bill and the Federal Reserve. He slammed White House officials like Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem. What would be your message to voters in North Carolina and also Republicans nationwide about what you would do differently compared to Senator Tillis?
Look, I need to win this seat in order to keep it in Republican hands, make sure we keep the Republican Senate. But it's very important that we have a conservative champion in North Carolina, and President Trump has an ally in the Senate.
I'm interested, if you look at the polling data right now, it does seem that Democrats have the enthusiasm advantage. We've seen a number of special elections so far where Democrat turnout dwarfed what we saw on the Republican side, and they're overperforming compared to 2024. What needs to change in the next 6 months to ensure that Republicans start to close that gap when it comes to enthusiasm and drive up turnout?
Well, we need to make sure we're talking to the voters of North Carolina about what a contrast we have in this election. The fact is, I'm running to rebuild our economy. I'm running to make sure that we're going to keep our kids and our communities safe, that our men and women in uniform are going to have what they need to carry out their mission around the world to protect our interests and allies. Roy Cooper, on the other hand, he is going to fight harder for criminals, for illegal aliens, for men who want to play in girls' sports and go in girls' locker rooms, and for New York values than he is for North Carolina families. And when we have that conversation with our voters, we've already seen it because President Trump carried North Carolina in 2016 and 2020 and 2024 on those values. We're going to win this time around fighting on those same values.
And now, the last time I interviewed you, you were serving as chair of the RNC. And I'm interested in how your experience with the RNC has prepared you for this race and what it's done to teach you about this entire process and how it's going to make you a successful senator.
Yeah, I got to tell you, there's certainly no better position to come out of and get into a statewide race like this Senate race right now, just in terms of building up a national network, in terms of the media exposure and training, in terms of getting to work with the best talent in terms of elections and understanding what it takes to win. And also, President Trump as a mentor is a fantastic thing because he's a guy who was relentless. He works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you understand what you can actually accomplish when you're running that way. And really, truly, I'm very thankful to the president for his support being the RNC chair and his support in asking me to run for this Senate race. It means a lot that we've got his support. I don't think you can win in North Carolina without it. And the agenda is really, truly fundamental, which is we've just got to make sure we're fighting for North Carolina first every day.
Now, obviously, in your position as RNC chair, you kept a very close eye on every race that was taking place nationwide. And now, obviously, you're focused on your own race, North Carolina. But zooming out, looking nationally, are you more optimistic now about Republican odds in maintaining their House and Senate majority, especially in the House, given the recent redistricting victories that we've seen from the GOP?
Certainly the redistricting helps, right, in terms of what happened in Virginia and the different moves that are around. But ultimately, what is going to cause the Republicans to win in this election cycle, whether it's for the House or for the Senate, is going to be the environment. It's going to be the fact that President Trump is out there delivering on his promises, the fact that we're going to have a major contrast here. We saw what happens when you put Democrats in charge. With Joe Biden, Democratic House, Democratic Senate, we saw inflation at 9% year over year. We saw grocery prices, gasoline prices, housing prices going through the roof. We saw what happened in Afghanistan. We saw Russia invade Ukraine. We saw that the world is a far more dangerous place when America is weak. Right now, what we're seeing is the world is a far better place because America is strong. We are building this economy. It's going to be better for the American people. And ultimately, we do not want in North Carolina to go back to those failed policies that Roy Cooper is championing. He has doubled down on the same failed agenda that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris lost on, right? It was open borders, inflationary spending, a weak, woke America. Roy Cooper's doubling down on stupid right now to fight for that agenda. I'm fighting for the agenda that North Carolinians want.
Michael Whatley, we so appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much for your time.
It's great to be on with you, sir.